Hey guys, this is educational content. We are reviewing a lawsuit. Please note that we are giving commentary for documentary purposes, educational purposes, and conversation purposes. Make sure you guys are hitting the like button and remember, it's educational content. Thank you. I haven't seen anyone really get into this Kevin Costner lawsuit. A stunt woman by the name of Devyn actually filed a very interesting lawsuit against Kevin Costner. So, to give you guys the short of this, Devyn LaBella is the woman bringing the lawsuit. She is a professional stunt woman who has been working in the industry for many years on various projects. She was hired to work on Horizon, Kevin Costner's film series and project. It's been very popular. A lot of people out there have reviewed Horizon. Now, Devyn is alleging that there was an unscripted scene in Horizon that she had to participate in that was essentially a simulated rape scene. And so it was through that scene that really basically traumatized her. She quotes the Me Too movement in her lawsuit. And, she's basically saying that she's been blackballed from the industry because of this situation. Kevin Costner writes a declaration, which we're about to read, where he's completely discrediting everything that Devyn is saying in her lawsuit. And let's talk about it because there's been some interesting developments. I haven't really been keeping up. I see that Law and Crime covered it briefly, but I kind of have my own commentary. So we're going to go ahead and cover this lawsuit. Let's go. Now, she filed this lawsuit on May 27, 2025. We were right at the Diddy trial when this lawsuit was filed. But let's get into it. She's suing Kevin Costner Horizon series, Territory Pictures, and Does 1 through 10 for sexual discrimination in violation of FEHA, sexual harassment in violation of FEHA. Sexual discrimination in violation of FEHA, sexual harassment in violation of hostile work environment. FEHA is the Fair Employment Housing Act, okay? It's basically state civil rights laws that protect individuals from discrimination, harassment, both employment and housing based on various protected categories, which include religion, disability, sex, race, sexual orientation, and more. And the law applies to employers of 5 or more people and requires them to provide reasonable accommodations for employees with disabilities, with FEHA protections often being broader and more comprehensive than federal laws. Okay. Sexual harassment, failure to remedy and prevent discrimination and harassment in violation of FEHA, retaliation in violation of FEHA, interference with the exercise of civil rights in violation of the BAN Act, and intentional infliction of emotional distress and breach of contract. Okay, so let's get into this introduction. And if you are aware of this lawsuit, put a one in the chat. I'm kind of new to it, but I found it to be interesting because I feel like Kevin Costner, at least in my opinion, I haven't seen a whole lot of like Hollywood problematic things behind his name. Maybe you guys let me know in the chat. Maybe y'all have, but I haven't. Maybe I just haven't been paying attention to Kevin Costner. I mean, I just remember Kevin Costner being like Whitney Houston's guy on The Bodyguard. And in my mind, Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston ended up together. Like, that's how the movie ended. They just ended up together, period. Still. Okay. On May 2nd, 2023, plaintiff Devyn LaBella, a female stunt performer, was the victim of a violent, unscripted, unscheduled R scene directed by Kevin Costner, Mr. Costner, owner, chief executive officer, and secretary of Horizon Series, Inc. The impact of this impromptu work demand on Miss LaBella has been profound, not only upending a career Miss LaBella spent years building, but leaving her with permanent trauma that she will be required to address for years to come. Now, I did a look into Devyn's background a little bit more because I was kind of curious to know, like, who was she, where she come from, and she's a stunt. She's like a lady stunt. It's like all over her IG. It's what she does for a living. She plays like a stunt on various movies. She's a stunt woman. Miss LaBella files this action not only for the damages she has sustained, but to address the continued failures at the highest level of Hollywood production companies to comprehend and address the impacts of performing sexually explicit and violent scenes and the need for intimacy coordination. Isn't this very like familiar to Blake Lively? Like, wasn't that a little bit of that Justin Baldoni situation? And listen, I'm so behind that. If you guys can fill me in the chat, like, this little intimacy coordinator, there's like somebody that has to like help out. There's like a coach for that. Sounds similar. The Horizon series is a 4-part film anthology chronicling a 15-year period in a settlement of the American West. The lawlessness of the American West made settlement particularly dangerous for women, who were often subjected to rampant objectifications and sexual violence. The films composing the series are written by, produced, directed, and star Mr. Costner. The series' set production leadership team consists almost entirely of men, with only one female member who works as a second assistant director. Chapter 1 was released on June 28, 2024. Chapter 2 was originally scheduled to be released on August 16, 2024, but the release was delayed, and as of this filming, no theatrical release has been scheduled. Chapter 3 series is currently in production in Colorado, and Chapter 4 is currently in pre-production. Neither Chapter 3 nor 4 have an announced expected release date. Something to know. Okay, so jurisdiction and venue. The plaintiff resides in California, and they are part of the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. Okay, so we're going to get into the parties. So we know the plaintiff is Devyn LaBella, as set forth in details hereafter, has been subjected to and suffered significant injuries as a result of the acts and failures to act of each of the defendants. Miss LaBella is a 34-year-old woman who grew up in an Italian-American family in Greater Los Angeles, where she attended Catholic school and worked from a young age in her family's restaurant. In school, Miss LaBella excelled as a gymnast, taking home 7 California State Championship titles. After obtaining a BA in psychology from the University of Redlands in 2013, Miss LaBella was drawn back to work as a gymnast and aerialist and decided to pursue a career in entertainment industry. Miss LaBella pivoted from acting to focusing on stunt work. After signing with the top specializing stunt agency in 2016, she has worked consistently in stunts for the past several years, successfully competing against longtime veteran stunt women and landing those jobs. In 2020 and in 2021, Miss LaBella continued to level up her biggest opportunities and was increasingly selected for major stunts in films and popular shows, including Barbie, American Horror Stories, CSI Vegas, The Rookie, Yellowjack, American Pie Girls Rule, SWAT, Quantum Leap, 911, and over 81 additional titles. A lot of these stunt people do not get, a lot of the recognition. I mean, you see their names on the credit, but like they do a lot of these movies, right? Some of these actors, and I don't blame them. Some of the stunts that they do, we've seen stunt people get severely hurt. I think it was Jackie Chan that I remember he would do his own stunts. Like there's some celebrities out there that do their own, but for the most part, most celebrities hire, or the production hire, stunt people for these things. Let's keep going on this lawsuit. Miss LaBella had also achieved impeccable and commanding reputation for herself. Jeff Barnett, stunt coordinator and member of Stunts Unlimited, has gone on the record stating, "I have used Bella a lot. She's the complete gymnast, contortionist, and extremely athletic. Devyn will make any coordinator's job easier. She's very helpful, responsible, and professional." In 2023, Ms. LaBella's career path continued to rise. The Horizon production team selected her to perform as Miss Hunt's lead stunt double on her first run for a huge film with one of the biggest actors and directors known, Kevin Costner. As a run, Miss LaBella was cast as the lead stunt double for Miss Hunt throughout the duration of the filming process. This was a major opportunity that she knew would lead to more work in features for her. Miss LaBella knew that if she did well, doors would open. She was extremely excited to join the Saga production, especially because knowing there would be 4 films in the franchise and that her coordination provides talent for all the projects of Taylor Sheridan, co-creator of Yellowstone series. Since becoming a stunt woman, Miss LaBella's earnings have increased on a yearly basis, so she's eligible for residuals from television and film releases. That is really cool. That's really cool. So she's worked her way up. Had her career not come to an abrupt halt as a result of the events detailed in this complaint, Miss LaBella's projected income would have been substantially higher in the coming year, especially with some major projects in which she had been cast as a stunt woman being released, thereby further increasing her visibility and reputation within the industry. Specifically, the SAG-AFTRA prohibits any last-minute requests for nudity or simulated S. Rather, producers must provide at least 48-hour notice before call time to review, negotiate a rider for nudity, simulated S, obtaining performers' consent. This applies even when a producer wants to make a change to a previously agreed upon series. Oh. So, this is interesting. This applies even when a producer wants to make a change to previously agreed upon scenes. SAG-AFTRA also provides that when there is a scene involving nudity and simulated S, a performer has the right to bring a professional representative or an intimacy coordinator. Wow, and so we have some of these links here. Let's look into that. So the lawsuit actually provides a quick guide for scenes involving nudity and simulated S. Work that involves nudity or simulated S places performers in uniquely vulnerable situations. This work is and always shall be something a performer is proud of and something they engage in willingly. To protect a performer's immediate and ongoing comfort and safety, key factors include ensuring that the performers have, okay, and I'm going to read this real quick because we got to focus on the lawsuit, appropriate notice of nudity. So this is what Devyn is saying. There has to be appropriate notice of nudity required from a role in audition process, an opportunity to provide meaningful written consent free of pressure or coercion, written writers that outline the parameters of nudity or simulated S, and safe and secure working conditions that are not detrimental to their health and safety, morals, and career. And then they get into the contractual stuff. There's even protections for harassment that they outline here. Guys, let me know what you guys think. And look, they have prohibitions on actual sex. Prohibitions on actual sex, guys. They have this there. And it says, SAG-AFTRA contracts explicitly prohibits actual sex acts, meaning that at no time should a performer auditioning or working under a SAG-AFTRA contract engage in or be asked to engage in actual sex acts. Actual sex includes genital contact without a physical barrier, regardless of whether the performer is clothed or unclothed. Ooh, so they do have regulations. I'm oblivious to this, y'all. I'm totally not a Hollywood person, so it is a little bit. So I'm totally oblivious to this, but this is an interesting read, and maybe I'll make it available for the members on the Discord so you guys can see it. Miss Hunt's contract made the right mandatory as it required the presence of intimacy coordinator for all intimacy scenes. Intimacy coordinators have been included in contracts negotiated by actresses after decades of top actresses voicing their discomforts in filming intimate scenes without proper consent, and a hashtag #MeToo movement that shone a vital light on the abuse that can result from a too casual, often male-dominated set. Okay, and so they tagged this article from The Hollywood Reporter, The Art of Filming Sex Safely, and the Case for Intimacy Coordinator Oscar. Also, any such scene must be performed on a closed set, meaning only essential employees are permitted on set during the rehearsal of the filming of such scene. This extends to a ban of on-set monitors during rehearsals and productions as well. As part of her role as the lead stunt double, Miss LaBella's job was to step in for the actor during physical scenes and to perform the stunt while the cameras were rolling. Such scenes are usually rehearsed and choreographed to ensure safety and accuracy. At times, a stunt double will also stand in for the actor briefly prior to filming, but it is not part of the job requirement or description. An intimate scene often requires the use of a stand-in or body double who lines up a shot or is just filmed as if they were the lead actor in the scene. However, when an intimate scene also calls for physicalities, such as a sexual assault scene, a stunt double is used and the scene is carefully choreographed. They carefully choreographed a sexual assault scene. You want it to be realistic enough for the cinema portion of this, right? For whatever movie or the set. I mean, I guess I wouldn't have expected anything different. It's just, crazy to reenact an essay scene, if that makes sense. Isabella's job has only ever entailed stepping in occasionally to line up a shot, and she has never had to stand in for an ad hoc scenes of sexual nature. The standard in the film and television industry is for all intimacy scenes to have safety protocols outlined and agreed upon in writing well before the shoot takes place. Once agreed upon, the protocols regarding intimacy action scenes cannot be added or changed without proper notification to and approval by performers. Additionally, per the above, Ms. Hunt's contract required the presence of an intimacy coordinator for the intimacy scene. The provisions held for anyone performing an intimacy scene in place of Miss Hunt include Miss LaBelle's. Furthermore, the SAG-AFTRA contract provides that if a performer refuses to film an intimacy scene, producers are allowed to use a body double within the parameters of the original performance consent. As such, Miss LaBella was entitled to the benefits negotiated by Miss Hunt, and all the contractual obligations afforded to Miss Hunt applied as well to Miss LaBella pursuant to the SAG-AFTRA. Prior to being selected as a stunt double for Miss Hunt, Miss LaBelle had only had 2 experiences with intimacy scenes. Both occurred on the American Horror Stories series, where she was filmed kissing someone in 2 separate episodes over 2 different seasons. Both times, Miss LaBella had an explicit written writer with an intimacy coordinator present, consistent with the above referenced protocols surrounding the filming of intimate scenes. The scripted rape scene. Oh man, okay. Miss LaBella arrived on set to production on April 11, 2023. The production was set to last until May 12, 2023, so just about a month. For the first few weeks, Miss LaBella's professionally performed her stunts without incident. However, this experience changed dramatically due to its very physical nature. Defendants informed Miss LaBella she would be doubling for the majority of a scripted, aggressive, and intimate rape scene between Miss Hunt's character, Juliet, and Sig, played by Douglas Smith, Mr. Smith, who was cast for the role in Los Angeles, California. The scripted rape scene was scheduled to be filmed on May 1st, 2023. The scene is described on the May 1st, 2023 call sheet as Sig wrestles Juliet down onto the wagon bed, gets on top of her. With his hands clamped over her mouth, he snuffs the lantern, tells her to lie still, and rakes at her clothes. The call sheet specifically provides there would be a closed set for the filming of this scene due to the sensitive nature of what was being recorded. The call sheet also only specifies Mr. Smith, Sig, and Miss Hunt, Juliet, and her stunt double, Miss LaBella would be present. The call sheet does not call for Roger Ivans, who played the character Bert, to be present. As required by the appropriate guidelines and protocols governing the film of such a scene, every movement and sequence was rehearsed multiple times with Miss LaBella's stunt coordinator, Mr. Allen, days before the scene was due to be shot. This rehearsal of choreography was also for the purposes of ensuring that no changes, surprises, or discomfort would occur when it came to the actual shooting of the scene on May 1st. Oh, this just looks like it would be a very like traumatic, like, even if it's fake, but like to get into the theatrics of it be a hard thing to kind of engage into. Rehearsals of such scenes are imperative. These scenes are more serious meetings before a shoot to help actors understand what a scene is going to contain. Moreover, having an intimacy coordinator on set is as important as the actual rehearsal. It's also a huge help to have an intimacy coordinator because there will always be a certain power imbalance on set, especially one dominated by men and defined by what they deemed comfortable. So they tag that Hollywood Reporter article. An intimacy coordinator speaks to the performers before, during, and after an intimate scene is filmed to ensure that there's no surprises. Emphasis added. They talk through what lighting is most flattering, lay out exactly which body part will be going where, and are constantly checking in to make sure the actors are comfortable. At approximately 7 a.m. the morning the scene was to be filmed, a private director rehearsal took place involving only Miss LaBelle, Miss Hunt, Mr. Smith, stunt coordinator Wade Allen, and the intimacy coordinator. The rehearsal took place on stage with only these essential crew members present. The rehearsal was professional, took place with no onlookers, and methodically walked all the scene participants, especially Miss LaBella's, through every single step of what would be an aggressive and intimate rape scene. Later that morning, the scene was filmed. Miss Hunt performed the acting scene, and Miss LaBella performed the more brutal and forceful parts of the physical action, such as being pushed down, wrestled, having her jacket ripped off, and having her arms held down. Miss Hunt delivered the lines after being pinned down under actor Mr. Smith. They were present together throughout the shoot. Intimacy coordinator Miss Cheney was on set to monitor the filming of the inside camera scene in the wagon. The scene wrapped, no issues were noted. However, following the shooting of the scene, Miss Hunt was informed that production still needed an insert shot of her face saying no. It is important to note that this scene required more than one take, and the actors needed to reset and replay the choreographed events more than once. When one take began, there is a clear direction of action to indicate that the scene film recording has begun, followed by a clear direction of cut indicating that the filming of the take is over. This allows different departments such as hair, makeup, stunts, and wardrobe to reset the necessary clothes, hair, and makeup for the next take. These directions also allow separation for actors. After each take, Mr. Smith and Miss Hunt or Miss LaBella in the more physical violent scenes separated from each other and allowed each other space to reset themselves physically and mentally. The next take started with each actor at a specific marker. Once the director said action, the rehearsed choreography was performed. This repeated until all takes were completed. The repetitive nature of these scenes further emphasized the necessity of the exhaustive rehearsal and choreographing required of all actors prior to filming. Miss Cheney was present for all the intimate scenes that Miss LaBella acted in Miss Hunt's place on May 1st and addressed any issues that arose. Okay, and then it goes to the unscripted rape scene. There's an unscripted rape scene. Okay, let's get into this. On May 2nd, 2023, Miss LaBella was on set to perform a non-intimate scene as a double for Miss Hunt. The call sheet scheduled her to be present at 8 a.m. The script called for Miss LaBella to rustle through a drawer and perform as Miss Hunt's double in a rain scene. The call sheet specifically states Juliet rakes through a chest drawer with Hugh's clothes, gets his carbine gun with handwritten instructions. Miss Hunt was also scheduled to be present for a scene per the call sheet, which is typically received the day before the shooting and does not consist of the full script. All cast and crew called for that day were present on the set. Miss Hunt arrived for her shot as scheduled on May 2nd. The script only called for Juliet, Miss Hunt, to mouth the word no. However, when Miss Hunt arrived, she learned that the director, defendant Costner, had requested that additional scenes be shot with a different male actor, Mr. Ivins, who had also been cast during pre-production in the Los Angeles area. In this scene, Mr. Ivins was to climb on top of Miss Hunt, violently raking up her skirt. Defendant Costner, who was present on the set, specifically added this scene, which varied from the scene filmed the day before, which had not involved pulling up the actor's skirts. Moreover, this revised scene is not specific in the assigned call sheet for that day. The only scenes specific on the call sheet involving Miss Hunt or Miss LaBelle were the previously stated innocuous scenes between Juliet Ruffles through the dresser and a second scene where Sig, Mr. Smith, interacts with the character Juliet. No physical action is outlined on the call sheet. There's no close set specified. There is no mention of Burke, Mr. Ivins, interacting with Juliet character at any point. Crucially, no arrangements were made for Miss Cheney or any other intimacy coordinator to be present during filming. Okay? Characterized as a killer in film, Mr. Ivins is described as standing at 6'2", 220 pounds. Extensive combat, stunt, acting training makes Roger Ivins a presence to be reckoned with as your door kicker in film. This is a description from rogerivins.com. Due to the ad hoc and violent nature of the sudden script change request, along with the failure to secure a contractual required intimacy coordinator for the scene, Miss Hunt became visibly upset and walked off the set, refusing to do the scene. Okay, Miss Hunt is like the original person, right? She's the one in the role. She's like, I'm not doing the scene. Miss LaBella was completely unaware of these developments. Following Mrs. Hunt's departure from the set, defendant Costner asked Miss LaBella to stand in for Miss Hunt to line up a shot. So Miss LaBella didn't even know that Miss Hunt, the main person, was like, I'm not doing this with no Roger Ivins. She's out. She didn't know. Devyn LaBella is like, I'm just here standing. Kevin Costner is telling me to stand in for this shot, line up, whatever. Miss LaBella was not a stand-in performer, and when defendant Costner requested of her was not within the scope of her role as a stunt double. Nevertheless, and in complete ignorance of the nature of the shot, she agreed to help. So she agreed to help with this. Okay. Miss LaBella was not informed that Miss Hunt had refused to do the scene and had walked off the set. Moreover, the call sheet did not specify what the revised shot would consist of, nor did any instructions issue from the production crew that Miss LaBella's involvement in the impromptu shot would go beyond standing in as a standard body double. She was not aware or prepared for Mr. Ivins to perform or engage in any action on top of her, and first learned that Ivins would mount her and violently pull her skirt up when he was already on top of her doing so. Oh, this is not good. Defendant Costner was fully in charge of directing the action filmed on May 2nd. The video village where the monitors were located for production and other essential crew to view the action being filmed were located approximately 20 to 30 feet away from the location where Miss LaBella was being filmed. Defendant Costner went back and forth, being at one moment in close proximity to the actual filming site and in another station at the monitors in the video village where he would view the shot. Throughout the shooting on May 2nd involved Miss LaBella, defendant Costner was very hands-on and was either involved in or fully aware of every single thing going on, including coming up close to the actors, giving direction, experimenting with different angles of film and takes, and checking the monitors only a few feet away. At no point in time during the filming of the May 2nd shoot involving Miss LaBella did defendant Costner leave to go to another location. As filming began, Miss LaBella lay down in the wagon as defendant Costner instructed. Costner approached her and directed that she hang her boots out of the wagon as the camera team and crew continued to test out and frame their shots. The camera was to broadcast the filming to the monitors located in the video village, where the director and producers watch. Normally, this would have sufficed as Miss LaBella standing in for lighting or cameras or whatever was needed. Then, without proper notice, consent, preparation, or appropriate safeguard measures in place, such as the project's intimacy coordinator being called in, defendant Costner directed Mr. Ivins to repeatedly perform a violent simulated rape on Miss LaBella. Oh my goodness. As directed by Costner, this unscripted, unrehearsed scene consisted of Mr. Ivins mounting Miss LaBella while miming the unbuttoning of his pants and using his body arms forcibly pinning down Miss LaBella, who was on her back underneath him. Mr. Ivins violently rushed Miss LaBella's skirt up as if he was trying to penetrate her against her will. SAG-AFTRA mandates that a performance or depiction in a scene requiring nudity or simulated S-acts is coordinated on their prior written consent, which would take the form of writer attached to their contract. So they're attaching that document that we already showed. A writer must be provided to a performer at least 48 hours before call time to review, negotiate writer for nudity, simulated sex. Last minute changes are prohibited. Wow. If a producer wants to request any changes to what was agreed upon, the performer must be given an additional 48 hours prior to call time. In this case, production failed to provide Miss LaBella any notice of simulated S-acts she was expected to perform, much less the contractual required writer. Notably, the simulated R actions Miss LaBella was subjected to were added that same day. In fact, Mr. Costner had been working with the stand-in actress to conceptualize and choreograph Mr. Ivins' actions for the shot until moments before Miss LaBella stepped on set. In complete contrast, the previous day's scene was thoroughly choreographed and rehearsed between stunt coordinator Mr. Allen and Miss LaBella to ensure Miss LaBella was precisely aware of the physicalities and knew exactly what to expect during the scene. Mr. Smith, playing Sig, had also been present during rehearsals on to ensure the choreography of what was to be filmed May 1st was known to all participants. There were required protocols to ensure there were no unknowns in the middle of filming a sexually violent scene. None of these safety protocols occurred on May 2nd, 2023. Further, during the prior day's filming, the stunts Miss LaBella performed did not involve her personal undergarments being exposed. Rather, her jacket was ripped off, while her clothes underneath remained intact. In the May 2nd shooting, no choreography outline or rehearsal done, no notice of the details of the scene given, and no provision for the presence of an intimacy coordinator. And this is like a repeat. Like, I get this, like the intimacy coordinator was not there, but it's like being repeated again and again. So just putting that out there. Indeed, Miss Hunt was not present precisely because she had protested and refused to participate. Well, we saw that. The call sheet does not mention anything about what would transpire, nor is there any notice of any last-minute decision. Given the sensitive nature of this impromptu scene, the set should have been closed in clear disregard for the privacy of the scene and in violation of the SAG-AFTRA contract. The scene was broadcasted publicly on monitors for the entire crew to witness. Moreover, since the set was open, anyone could walk by and observe the scene being performed. Indeed, there were multiple onlookers, along with the producer, watching the scene unfold on monitors in the video village. Okay. In your opinion, in the chat, let me know what you guys think, because you guys are watching the premiere of this, right? Do you feel, in your opinion, that Devyn, this stunt woman, do you guys feel like this is frivolous? Or do you guys feel like so far she has merit for this lawsuit? Let me know what you guys think in the comments, okay? Let's keep going with the lawsuit. On information and belief, the producers and other members of the production team who watch the filming on May 2nd, 2023, and failed to intervene to protect Ms. LaBella or to ensure that the filming complied with the requirements of the SAG-AFTRA contract were employed by or agents of one or more of the defendants. Thus, unlike the shots from the previous day, which were limited to just the actors involved engaging in a choreographed situation with a stunt coordinator, an intimacy coordinator, and some of the lead production personnel present, and all non-essential production people excluded, on May 2nd, the entire experience was broadcast over monitors. As a result, over 100 people viewed as other camera department crew members on the open set called out for Ivins to rake up her skirt higher. Wow. Further increasing confusion and stress for Ms. LaBella, the scene on May 2nd had no clear direction of when the scene began or ended. Defendant Costner failed to announce or to consistently announce action at the beginning or cut at the end of the shoot. The action was implied as the crew checked the lens and cameras as Mr. Ivins laid on top of Ms. LaBella after the action had already begun. There was no time or space to process or reject the directions that was given. Defendants failed to advise stunt coordinator Mr. Allen and intimacy coordinator Ms. Cheney that a scene calling for their presence was going to be filmed. Additionally, the hair and wardrobe department were both unaware a scene was being filmed. Had they been aware, the department would have been present to ensure proper resets and safety, such as intimacy protections. The intimacy coordinator had the opportunity to check in with the actors, in complete contrast on May 2nd, following the shoot of each take of the rape scene. Mr. Ivins never separated from Miss LaBelle after a take. He laid on his side with his face about a foot apart from hers while touching her, and with his hands resting above Miss LaBelle's area, okay? As if this was still the middle of the scene. There was constant connection and touching, even between takes. Oh my God, how disturbing. This run through of action occurred over and over as defendant Costner experimented with different takes of the R action. Miss LaBella was never given the opportunity to prepare for or consent to participate in the scene, much less object to it. To the contrary, without a discussion, explanation, rehearsal, choreography sessions, or stunt or intimacy coordinator present, defendant Costner instructed Miss LaBella to lay down as Mr. Ivins, who was dirty and covered in sweat, climbed on top of her and then lifted up her skirt while pinning her legs down so she could not move. Oh my God. On May 2nd, defendant Costner instructed Mr. Ivins to violently lift Miss LaBella's skirt up higher and higher. Her personal undergarments were exposed from under the skirt, and Miss LaBella's legs were pinned open by Mr. Ivins' knees. Defendant Costner specifically ordered Mr. Ivan to rake Miss LaBella's skirt higher in a specific way so that the camera could capture a close-up or moving shot of this intimate part of her body. You know, if these are all shots, they probably got all this in video or film. After giving this direction, defendant Costner checked and approved the film shot from the monitors. As defendant Costner directed Mr. Ivins to carry out the violent assault over and over again, Miss LaBella felt the air pour over her intimate parts as her personal undergarments were exposed. Even though, to Miss LaBelle's knowledge, costume undergarments were typically worn in planned intimate shots, This exposure was especially humiliating to Miss LaBelle, as she was menstruating at the time. Oh God. Compounded by the fact that between takes, Mr. Ivan's hands rested on top of her bundled up skirt above her area. Wardrobe immediately sewed up Miss LaBelle's bloomers after the scene as she requested. It should have been done prior to the scene, but the departments were not prepared or informed that the scene would be happening. There was no escaping the situation, and all Miss LaBella could do was wait for the nightmare to end. By virtue of Miss Hunt's contract as well as her own contract, Miss LaBelle should have received the same benefits requirements provided to Miss Hunt and Miss LaBella the day prior when filming the previously arranged and negotiated intimacy scene. As such, defendants violated their contractual obligation owed to Miss LaBella. The aftermath. Immediately after the scene, Miss LaBella was left in the wagon alone. She experienced shock, embarrassment, and humiliation while attempting to process the situation. Miss LaBella finally climbed out of the wagon and sat next to the wardrobe personnel, holding back the tears. She was unclear whether she had to continue shooting this scene, but when Mr. Allen saw that she was upset, he assured her she would not have to. Soon after, she was told the production team would be using a body double for such scenes in the future. Despite her terrified feelings, Miss LaBella was required to complete a scene depicting her shadow in the rain. After this, Miss LaBella went to her car and called her husband and told him what had happened on set, and then started crying as she recounted all the details. Miss LaBella met with Mr. Allen and two other stunt coordinators for dinner, as she believed it was important that she find out how this was allowed to happen. Upon expressing her outrage and concern, the male attendees blamed her for not speaking up. She now felt completely alone and disappointed, but as production was not yet wrapped, Miss LaBella had continued working and keep up a professional attitude. The day after the filming of the violent rape scene, Miss LaBella contacted Miss Cheney and specifically raised the absence of intimacy coordinator during the filming on May 2nd, her being required to do non-stunt work, especially given the sensitive nature of it, the lack of any preparation going into the scene, her exposure during the film, the demand that the scene be included despite the fact that it was not in the script, and the fact that the set was open rather than closed, among other issues. Over the next few days, Miss LaBella experienced continuous reminders of the shame, humiliation, complete lack of control she had experienced with during the May 2nd filming. She experienced sudden bouts of crying on and off set. At one point, Miss LaBella broke down in the hair trailer. Miss LaBella flew home for a few days, hoping this would help her regain control. However, she returned to the set after spending time with the family so as to maintain her professionalism and commitment to her craft. However, the situation on the set upon her return was very awkward. The production team was now extra careful around Miss LaBella. She was directed to stay alone in the trailer and not be present on set, even though this resulted in her being dressed in costume for full days and then not used. Multiple people apologized to her over the course of the days and made excuses for director Costner, all of which made her feel even more uncomfortable. This occurred up until production wrapped and Miss LaBella returned to Los Angeles. In June 2023, Miss LaBella began therapy to address symptoms stemming from her traumatic experience on the set, including intrusive, distressing memories of the traumatic events, sleep disturbance, fears of intimacy, anxiety, among other things. The workplace and the stunt work in general, which was once a source of purpose and fulfillment, is now a place of heightened apprehension. And the whole experience has left Miss LaBella feeling disposable and worthless. The thought of returning to a set gives her an overwhelming sense of dread. Following her complaints of sexual harassment on set, Miss LaBella was not hired back to continue her role or at all as a stunt double. Horizon 3. which began filming in early 2024. Additionally, Miss LaBella has not been hired on or any of Mr. Allen's subsequent projects, even though he had regularly hired Miss LaBella on prior projects. Okay, guys, so Kevin Costner responded to Devyn's lawsuit, and he actually wrote a declaration. And in this declaration, we're going to skim read through some of it because it is very lengthy. He literally has pictures, exhibits pictures of Devyn looking like she's smiling, looking a little bit different. I guess I will let you guys be the judges of what you feel like Devyn is doing here in some of these pictures, but Kevin Costner is definitely painting Devyn in a different light. And maybe not so much him, but like the exhibits are. Okay? Let's get into this and we're going to skim read because it's a very lengthy lawsuit. Let's go. So this is the paperwork, okay? And the declaration of Kevin Costner in support of defendant's special motion to strike plaintiff's complaint. Okay, so this is Kevin Costner. He says he's, of course, over the age of 18. He's an actor, director, and screenwriter that has been involved in the film business in one way or another for the past 40 years. He's listing out his movies. Of course, we know The Bodyguard, JFK. I have been fortunate to have been recognized by my fellow professionals, winning 2 Academy Awards, 3 Golden Globes, and an Emmy. My movie, Field of Dreams, was selected for preservation in the United States Film Registry by the Library of Congress. So, of course, very much a notable history. Okay. I have a deep personal interest in westward expansion of the 1800s, including its effects on disenfranchised group of the time. I routinely explore this theme in my movies, television series, and my media projects. And most recently, I served as a writer, director, and producer of an actor in the motion pictures. The Horizon series is a project that I have been working on for over 30 years and means a great deal to me personally. Generally speaking, the saga depicts the exploration of the American West and touches on different themes relevant to the time period, including the impact of the American Civil War, the relationship between the settlers and Native Americans, the challenges faced by European immigrants seeking a better life, and the foundational role played by women of the time, and the violence and difficult conditions they faced. Okay, so I think Kevin Costner's just kind of giving us an idea of some of the themes that are happening in his movies. To date, we completed and released Horizon 1, and we completed principal photography of Horizon 2, which has not yet been released. At the end of each of the 3 films, we provide a preview of the next film in the series. So we shot a few scenes of 3 to add to the end of 2, though we have not begun principal photography on the 3rd film. He further says, in the second picture, Horizon 2, I continue to expand upon the theme of series, focusing on, among other things, the extreme violence faced by women at the time. To that end, I wanted to include a poignant, deeply emotional, carefully crafted scene depicting the buildup and foretelling of the R-ing of one of the series' key characters, Juliet, played by actress Ella Hunt. Ella, by 2 of the male members of the wagon train heading west, Sig, played by actor Douglas Smith, Doug, and Burke, played by actor Roger Ivans. Okay. However, as a director, I do not believe that it is always necessary to be graphic in the depiction of violence or scenes involving sex. I have historically looked for opportunities to avoid being graphic when possible and still have the same impact on audiences. Horizon has been no different. To that end, even though the character Juliet suffered 2 violent, demoralizing R-ings in the narrative, I was able to achieve that goal. The audience sees only the lead up and the aftermath. There is no nudity or simulated S acts. Further, while I'm a director and a producer, I'm also an actor, and I understand the emotional toll it takes on actors while performing difficult scenes, such as those involving sexual violence and rape. Filmmaking is collaborative, and I believe it is crucial to ensure that everyone that is part of a movie production, from personal assistants and extras to the lead actors, feel comfortable. So Kevin is telling everybody that he really takes it upon himself to make sure that everybody is comfortable. What do you guys think in the comments? On May 1st, 2023, we were in the middle of a principal photography of Horizon 2, and we shot a violent scene involving Juliet and Sig characters that was the lead up to and foretelling of a rape we never witnessed. Again, to ensure that the actors felt as comfortable as possible doing an intense and emotional scripted scene that concerned the buildup and foretelling of a violent rape, we had an intimacy coordinator on hand to help the actors work through the challenging emotions called for in the scene. While it was a difficult, long day, the actors and crew did an amazing job. We captured a powerful scene that gives the audience an artistic but poignant insight into the trauma suffered by Juliet's character. When we filmed that scene, our stunt coordinator, Wade, was present the entire time, as there was physical actions that required the use of stunt doubles for the actor. I found Wade to be a consummate professional and conscientious stunt coordinator for this production. He was concerned about the comfort and safety of his stunt performers above all else. He made sure that he always understood exactly what was being asked of his stunt performers before they even rehearsed a shot, let alone filmed it. Generally speaking, film production operates according to a set of schedules that is memorialized in daily call sheets that identifies who needs to be on set and when, what scenes are being shot that day, and what crew are involved and where they need to be. However, film and television production never goes entirely according to schedule for a number of reasons, including things such as weather and the availability of cast and locations. As a director, one of my responsibilities is to ensure that we're making the movie we want within the parameters set by our budget. And that requires being efficient as possible with our filming days. Therefore, if I see a chance to pick up a shot or a scene on a particular shooting day, I'm going to explore that opportunity. And there's some missing words. I don't know if you guys have noticed, I did just zoom in, but I'm filling in the blanks for some words because there are some missing words. I think, I don't know if it's the print of the lawsuit, but just so you guys are aware. On May 1st, 2023, we also shot the first part of a scene leading up to a second R-ing that the audience once again never witnessed. In the script, that particular shot is described as follows: a fatigued, glass-eyed Juliet sits in her same clothes. She looks out through the front of her wagon and to see Fig. And there's something there's a missing words here, so I can't really fill that in, but we'll highlight that. Everything is moving but her when she's suddenly dragged back into the wagon out of sight. Inside Juliet's wagon, Juliet shakes head, mouth the word no without the breath to give it voice. Burke is already on her, clamming a great filthy hand over her mouth. When we start at the beginning of this second sequence, Juliet is sitting glassy-eyed, unable to fathom what had just happened to her in broad daylight. A filthy hand reached in, cupping her around the mouth, pulls her suddenly out of the frame. No words were spoken. We didn't even see who the hand belonged to. That would be the end of the shooting day on May 1st for Ella. The actress name is Ella, right? So this is where Ella's role is at. It's not so much where Devyn is being mentioned, but they're explaining the scene to us. We started the morning of May 2nd on a longer scene where Sig finds Ella with a gun. We would spend most of the day on the scene as there was a lot of dialogue. The scene went beautifully, and I knew how much effort Ella had put into it. I was anxious to have her be done given the nature of what she had gone through the last 2 days, and I truly thought she was done until I realized, or it was brought to my attention, that we still owed the second part of the scene from May 1st, where we realized it was not Sig who would rape her a second time, but it was now Burke. I would achieve that by not having his hand over her mouth, but had designed a shot that would start at her hem with his hand slowly pulling the skirt up the side of Juliet's leg to her knee. The camera would then overtake the hand, continuing up to Ella's face, and reveal that it was now burnt and that their faces were inches apart. Because the camera moved to their faces, there was no need for the skirt to go any higher than Ella's knees. The camera would then focus on Ella's face as she pleaded the words no. Although not scripted, we also did a take with no, please don't. So, more explanation from Kevin Costner's declaration. When I had to tell Ella that we still owed his scene, I knew she was exhausted. Like me, she thought we were done for the day, but I was responsible for finishing the scene and asked her to do it. She was upset, and I knew it. As an actor, I found myself in the same situation where I thought I was done for the day only to be brought back. I understood her perfectly. She was professional and came back to the shot for me, even though it was the last thing she wanted to do. It would be two shot and from Ella. There's a missing word here. It would be and from Ella. I would get just a line where she says no. I would not go for the full shot that I had designed in my head. I would get portions of that shot as a pickup shot later with a double showing, just the hand pulling on the dress. It is important to note that the scenes we shot the day before pulling Ella out of the frame would always be separated from this scene by cutting to the outside of the wagon. This is how it was written, and that is how it was edited. The reasons I created the simple version that works as a static insert shot was because I could no longer move the camera to the actor's face. So I think this is the missing words. It would be a static two shot. Okay, let's keep going. I could no longer move the camera to the actor's face. I did not have Ella. To be clear, the static insert shot was designed to be a tight, isolated shot of Burke's hand taking Juliet's dress by the hem at her ankles and moving the hem up the side of her leg to her knee. That was it. The simple act of moving the hem of the dress from the ankle to the knee created a movement of absolute clarity for the audience to absorb what happened off scene. There would be no simulated R-ing, simulated sex, gyrating, violent restraint, nudity, or any physicality. It was just a quick static of shot of the hem of the dress going up the leg from the ankle to the knees. In the final cut, it would proceed, the camera focusing on Burke and Juliet's face inches apart as she mouths the words no. In film production, a shot is a building block of a scene. A scene is a discrete unit of storytelling within the larger narrative that is defined by a specific setting, can involve anywhere from a single camera shot to hundreds of shots, depending on the scene's complexity. Each shot in a scene, in turn, captures a particular angle or moment in the scene and can be as short as 1 second. Here, I wanted to add one pickup shot, not one scene. This particular shot from start to finish would have taken more than a few seconds. Typically, before a shot is actually filmed, it is blocked, which means that the director, the camera, and the actors walk through the shot so that everyone knows what will happen before it is actually filmed. It is extremely common for directors and others in production to want to experiment with different blocking and different shots, and sometimes even different scenes that are not necessarily scripted in detail. The creation of a motion picture is an inherently creative venture that allows for and requires flexibility and experimentation. The covered wagon we were using on May 2nd, 2023 was located on set inside a hangar. A true and correct copy of picture taken of the outside of a hangar is attached here to as Exhibit A. This picture was taken on May 2nd, 2023. We're going to see these exhibits by the set still photographer Fred Hayes. A true and correct copy of a picture of covered wagon on set inside the hangar showing that this portion of the hangar was walled off the black scenes is attached here to as Exhibit B. This picture was taken by Hayes on May 2nd, 2023. Hayes confirmed that he took all of the pictures referred to in his declaration. On the morning of May 2nd, 2023, we filmed a scene involving Ella and Doug. And because there was stunt work and physical action involved, Ella's stunt double, Devyn, was on set in full costume, as was Devyn's supervisor, Wade. Attached as composite Exhibit C are some photographs taken by Hayes that morning. They include the following. So a series of photographs taken that morning showing me showing me explaining a shot to Wade and Devyn that involved a firearm. Okay. A photograph showing Devyn looking at Doug and Ella working on scene in the back of the covered wagon. Photographs showing Ella and Devyn in the same exact costume. And photographs showing Ella and I looking at the mirror on set. We asked the stand in if she would block the shot. She had no issue with that. But because she was wearing jeans and not a dress, we also needed to block it with someone wearing the same costume as Ella. At some point, I spoke with either Wade or Phil, asking them if Devyn, who was in the exact same costume as Ella, would assist with blocking the shot. I did not personally ask Devyn. My assumption was either Wade or Philip spoke with Devyn. Ultimately, in the blocking process, I explained it to both Roger and Devyn, which after I returned to the monitor, blocking a shot essentially means to choreograph it to ensure that everyone is on the same page with regard to the positioning and movement of the actor and the camera before filming actually begins. Unless there is a specific need to do so, we do not film the blocking of shot and did not do so in this instance. Jim, our director of photography, rehearsed different ways of blocking the shot with the stand in. I then worked with Jim and the stand in, and we added Roger to the shot to block it, as he was the actor in the shot. When Roger was blocking the shot with the stand in, Wade was observing. I was not a party to any conversation between Wade and or Devyn, but a few minutes later, I saw Devyn getting into the back of the covered wagon to block the shot. I understand now that Wade spoke with her and explained the shot to her, and that Devyn understood what was to happen and consented to help. Oh, but okay, so is Kevin Costner going to get Wade as like a witness to be like, yeah, like she said she was down for this, type of situation, like, or she consented to this? Or because Devyn is literally saying that she didn't even know all of this or anything like that. She didn't know Ella had walked off. I mean, Kevin Costner's not even addressing that quite yet. We then blocked the shot with Roger and Devyn as we had rehearsed the shot with the stand-in several times in different ways. By the time we blocked it with Devyn, we knew what we wanted. We just needed to block it using the actual dress. When we blocked the shot, Roger and Devyn were laying down next to each other in the covered wagon, at which point Roger took the hem of Devyn's ankle length dress, but not her pantaloons or petticoats, pulled it up towards her knee, swung his leg over her, and ended up on all fours over her. There was no nudity, simulated S, simulated R-ing, physical contact, fighting, gyrating, or any physicality other than Devyn's outer dress being pushed from her ankles to her knees. While Devyn's outer dress may have been bunched up around her knees, there was a lot of fabric. The dress was still below her waist, and the pantaloons and petticoats underneath remained undisturbed. To my knowledge, Devyn's privacy was fully maintained. I certainly was not directing the camera to get sensationalist shots of Devyn below the waist. That was not the shot I wanted to get, nor would I have asked for it. This was not intended to be, nor was it sensationalist or exploitative. This was not a violent R-ing scene. It was an extremely quick, tightly focused shot showing Roger moving the hem of her dress and was designed to imply what was about to happen, nothing more. Okay, it's a very interesting statement Mr. Costner is making here, my friends. Okay, let's keep going. We may have blocked it a couple times, but because we were not filming the blocking of the shot, there was no something like this. There's just some missing letters in between. There was no reason to call action or cut. Okay, it was a quick process. We were blocking the shot. I was sitting behind the monitor looking at the feed that was coming from Jim's camera, which was on but not filming. Attached here to our Exhibit D is a photograph that Hayes took of myself and Roger looking at the monitor immediately after the blocking of the pickup shot was finished. There are maybe 4 or 5 people in the vicinity of the monitor at that time. I don't recall there being large numbers of crew members near the set where we were blocking the shot, and certainly not huddled around me looking at the feed through the monitor. The vast majority of the crew were shooting outside against a blue screen, simulating this scene, the streets of Chicago with extras. Attached here to Composite Exhibit E is a true and correct copy of a set of photographs taken by Hayes on May 2nd, 2023, that depict Roger and Devyn interacting during the blocking of the shot in question. So they're laying out the shots. In photograph E1, Roger is laying next to Devyn, who is laying down inside the covered wagon and is about to start pushing her dress towards her knees. A rotated close-up of Devyn's face in photograph E1 is also attached. It's like they want you to look at her face to make sure that you understand, like, maybe her reaction to some of this. In photograph E2 and E3, you can see that Roger has started to push up Devyn's dress, and you can see the multiple layers of undergarments she has underneath the dress. In photographs E4, you could see that Roger has now pushed up her dress to her knees, but the undergarments were not also pushed up, and she started to sweep his leg over Devyn. In photograph E5, you can see Roger is now on all fours over Devyn, and you can see that in this position, and her pantaloon and bloomers are still going down her feet. So, like, I know that these exhibits are here, but essentially, this woman is saying that she was traumatized through this whole process. Finally, in photograph E6, you can see that Roger is now completely on all fours over Devyn, which is the end of the blocking of the shot. A rotated close-up of Devyn's face in photograph E6 is also attached. The images captured by Hayes are consistent with with my memory from that day. We had a great shoot in the morning with Ella, Doug, and Devyn, serving as stunt double for Ella. In a scene involving a struggle over a gun after lunch, we moved onto the blocking of the shot, and the photographs show the sequence of blocking. They also show that Devyn seemed comfortable and not in distress, which is consistent with my recollection of her during the blocking process. Kevin Costner said that he never really directly spoke with her. Was like ever, or just like when May 2nd happened, or ever, or just through a certain scene? Because if he's saying that, she looked comfortable, she didn't look in distress, but he never really checked in on her, then I guess you wouldn't know, right? I had worked with Devyn before blocking the shot on May 2nd, 2023, including the morning of that same day, and worked to ensure that she, like everyone else on set, was comfortable and safe. At any point, if Devyn felt the least bit uncomfortable, I would have been upset if she didn't speak up and let me know. I don't want my actors or crews to ever be uncomfortable or in distress. Okay. I don't want my actors to feel uncomfortable or in distress. Devyn consented to block the shot, and both my recollections and the pictures taken by Hayes show she did not look uncomfortable or in distress. I had no reason to believe that she was in any way upset. So why were they apologizing to her? Like, did they realize it after the fact? Did Kevin Costner apologize after the fact? Or like what? Because at the end, he's the one there directing this whole thing, right? After the shot was blocked, I actually wanted to film it. However, Wade and Phil Patterson, my first assistant director, approached me. Wade told me that he did not want Devyn to appear on film in a shot that did not involve a stunt. I had a lot to do that day and just moved on. I did not question Wade's decision. At no point during the blocking of the shot did either the stand-in or Devyn appear upset or concerned in any way. In fact, I never heard that Devyn claimed to be upset about anything that happened that day until months after principal photography of the picture was over, when I learned that she had retained an attorney. Hold up. But, like, didn't Devyn say in her lawsuit that, like, people were checking in on her, they were excusing Kevin Costner's behavior, he didn't know, like, what? So Kevin Costner saying here, I didn't even know that the girl was upset. Like, what's going on? I don't know, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. We have not begun principal photography on Horizon 3, other than a teaser that we shot to add the end of Horizon 2. Ella's character, Juliet, is not in Horizon 3, and so there would be no reason to hire Devyn as Ella's stunt double for the film. I personally am not responsible for casting stunt doubles, and I certainly did not instruct anyone to isolate Devyn on set or refrain from hiring Devyn because of any purported complaints about the blocking on of the shot on May 2nd, 2023. As I said, I wasn't even aware that Devyn was making any such complaints until after principal photography on Horizon 2 had wrapped up. Principal photography of Horizon 2 began in April of 2023 and concluded in June 2023. Horizon had not yet been released. The first picture in Horizon, an American Saga series, was a series of hundreds of reviews in nationwide publications. The film itself was theatrically released on over 3,300 screens and was widely viewed on both HBO Max and Netflix. In fact, numerous articles have already been written about this very lawsuit, which appeared to be part of LaBella's litigation strategy. Oh, really? In majority publications, including Entertainment Weekly, People Magazine, and the New York Post. When I reviewed the complaint filed by Devyn in this lawsuit, I was shocked at the false and misleading allegations she was making. For example, Devyn claimed that I had requested that additional scenes be shot with a different male actor, Mr. Ivins, on May 2nd, 2023. That is false. As I previously stated, I wanted to add one extremely short and limited shot, not an entire scene, let alone multiple scenes. Devyn claimed that no physical action is outlined on the call sheet for May 2nd, 2023, but this is false. The morning of May 2nd, we filmed a physical scene involving Sig taking a gun from Ella. Because of the physical nature of the sequence, Devyn, as Ella's stunt double, needed to be and was present in costume and available. Devyn remained in costume and available to block the shot involving Burke. Devyn claims that my request to get one additional shot was an ad hoc and violent sudden script change. This is false. As I previously stated, the script actually describes a scene as Juliet's character is suddenly dragged back into the wagon and out of sight. Inside Juliet's wagon, Juliet shakes her head, mouths the word no without the breath to give it voice. Burke is already on her, clamping a great filthy hand over her mouth. Listen, to me, I mean, any type of R scene is violent, right? All of this would be violence to me. This scene with Burke, therefore, was absolutely in the script and was my attempt to capture one additional shot to make sure the impact of the scene was fully felt by the audience, was appropriate, and not out of the ordinary. Devyn claims that I asked Miss LaBella to stand in for Miss Hunt to line up a shot. That is false. I don't recall asking Devyn to line up the shot. My recollection is that I told Phil and Wade what I planned to shoot and understood that Wade discussed a shot with Devyn before she agreed to help block it. Afterwards, when Roger and Devyn were in the wagon, I provided instructions consistent with my expectations for the shot. That is, Roger would lie next to Devyn and slowly move the hem of Juliet's dress from her ankle to her knee, where the camera would overtake Roger's hand and begin moving to Juliet's face. During the editing process, we could then insert the portion of the shot film with Ella mounting the word no. Earlier in the day, after giving the necessary instructions to the actors and camera crew, I returned to the monitors. Okay. Devyn also claimed that defendant failed to advise stunt coordinator Mr. Allen that a scene calling for his presence was to be filmed. That is false. Wade was fully informed of the shot that was to be blocked and watched it blocked with the stand-in. I understand that he was also the person who explained the shot to Devyn. Devyn also claims that the hair and wardrobe department were both unaware a scene was being filmed. Assuming Devyn is talking about this shot, this again is false. This was not a scene, it was a film, and wardrobe was present when the shot was being blocked. In fact, the head of the costume department, Lisa Lavis, who has decades of experience in this business, was on the set. Okay, and then they further add Devyn's description of the shot as a violent simulated RE is absurd and sensationalistic. It is more than false. It is a bold face lie intended to create wide publicly viewed shock value and damage the movies and me personally. This was one artistic shot designed to imply what was going to happen off screen and purposefully was not a simulated R-ing, as Devyn now falsely describes. Devyn refers to this shot as being filmed. That is false. It was never filmed, as it was never actually shot. It was blocked. And I was able to, Lord have mercy, we have some missing letters. I was able to something feed it from the camera while it was being blocked. It was never recorded. Devyn claims that following the shooting of each take of the R scene, Mr. Ivins never separated from Miss LaBella. Again, this is false and a gross, inaccurate exaggeration of a brief moment on set. First, this was not an R scene. It was scripted violence that preceded an R the audience would not witness. We were blocking the shot. There was no shooting and there was no takes. While the shot may have been blocked twice, the entire attempt to block this shot with Devyn occurred in a reasonable amount of time. At no point should she have felt uncomfortable. On set, all actors have the opportunity to take a break or not. In fact, this applies to the entire crew from cameramen to stunt doubles. Devyn is no exception. If Devyn was uncomfortable for any reason, all she had to do was say so. While she contrasts this to the scene that was filmed the day before, that scene on May 1st was comprised of multiple shots and took hours to complete. Once again, to be clear, neither of the scenes involved an actual R-ing. Both were violent scenes building up to and foretelling an actual R-ing that would not be filmed and the audience would not witness. Devyn claimed that the scene was broadcast publicly on monitors for the entire crew to witness, that there were multiple onlookers with the producers watching this scene unfold on monitors in the video village, and that over 100 people viewed the blocking of the shot. That is patently false. This shot was not filmed. It was fed via cameras to just a handful of monitors at my specific location, and they have a exhibit of this. There are maybe 4 or 5 people in the vicinity of the monitors at that time. There was nowhere near 100 huddled around me looking at the feed through the monitor. Devyn alleges that she was confused because I failed to announce or to consistently announce action at the beginning or cut at the end of the shoot. This is an odd allegation for a film professional. As a director, I do not yell action or cut when a shot is being blocked. Those are words used only when something is actually filmed, which was not done in this case. This should not have caused any confusion for Devyn. Even if it did, she simply needed to ask a question. The blocking or choreographing of a shot at its core involves collaboration. Devyn alleges that I specifically ordered Mr. Ivins to rake Miss LaBella's skirt higher in a specific way so that the camera could capture a close-up or moving shot of this intimate part of her body. That is patently false. I already described the only guidance I gave to Mr. Roger with regards to the movement of the dress. I never asked Roger to move the dress in a way that invaded Devyn's privacy and would expose an intimate part of Devyn's body. I certainly was not directing the camera to get a sensationalist shot of Devyn below the waist. This was not the shot I wanted to get, nor would I have asked for it. The shot was never intended to be, nor was it sensationalized or exploitative. It was an extremely quick, tightly focused shot designed to imply what was about to happen and not to actually show it. Devyn alleges that she was trapped in 15 minutes or so that it took to block this shot. That is ridiculous. I had worked with Devyn before that shot, including in the morning of that same day, and worked to ensure that she, like everyone else on set, was comfortable and safe. Given that she consented to block the shot and was smiling during the blocking, I had no reason to believe that she was upset in any way. Equally as important as I earlier testified, it is not how I run my set. If an actor or other crew members is uncomfortable, all they have to do is say so. So she had seen Kevin Costner earlier, right? Like that's what it sounds like. And so then she was given ample opportunity to say, like, I'm uncomfortable with this. But what Devyn is using is the SAG-AFTRA policies where she's saying that, Kevin Costner and team broke these policies. They're supposed to protect you. You're supposed to be given like a specific time frame. Maybe she didn't have time to think through this whole thing and she, I don't know, changed her mind after the fact, but she agreed to it then, but it bothered her later on. Devyn suggests that she had not been hired for any subsequent Horizon film in retaliation for speaking out, and that is absurd. First, we have not begun principal photography Horizon 3. Second, Ella's character Juliet is not in Horizon 3, and so there would be no reason to hire Devyn as Ella's stunt double for that film. Third, while I personally am not responsible for casting stunt doubles, I certainly did not instruct anyone to isolate Devyn on set or refrain from hiring Devyn because of any purported complaints about the blocking of the shot on May 2nd, 2023. As I said, I wasn't even aware that Devyn was making any such complaint until after principal photography Horizon 2 had wrapped. Devyn's claims against me are absolutely false, and it is deeply disappointing to me that a woman who worked on our production would claim that I or any other member of my production team would make one of our own feel uncomfortable, let alone suffer the nightmare she has invented. She's invented it. That's what he's saying. My belief is that Kevin's claims were designed through the use of false statements and sensationalistic language to damage my reputation. These allegations are so patently false, I can only assume that the purpose was to use this sensationalistic language to embarrass and damage me and Horizon movies on an ongoing basis in order to gain a massive and unjustified payday. Equally as bad, having to read about and address the allegations I know to be false, involving the word rape and assault has been an absolute nightmare. The truth matters. That's why, even at the high cost of this lawsuit, financial and personal, I will always speak up to defend myself and my crew against any false allegations. I've worked with many on this crew before, and I know they care deeply about each other and the important stories we tell. They, like me, do not deserve to have their reputations impugned by opportunists making false claims. He called her an opportunist making false claims. And so then there is Kevin Costner's signature, and he signs this on August 18, 2025. So almost a month. Here's the thing that's missing from Kevin Costner's lawsuit. He's not really addressing the SAG-AFTRA policies that are in place for these actors and actresses, right? Doesn't really mention that in his declaration. If there was no simulated R scenes or simulated S scenes or any gyrating or any of that stuff, right? Let's just say that that's the case, that none of that occurred. Why did Kevin Costner say in his declaration that through a third party, somebody else talked to Devyn to basically say if she was okay doing the scene, if she consented? Like, why even need consent if this wasn't even a scene that was a blocking that they were going to do? That doesn't make sense to me, what Kevin Costner is saying here. And the other thing, too, why I bring the SAG-AFTRA, which is something that Kevin Costner does not bring in his declaration. I mean, SAG-AFTRA is talking about a waiting period, allowing the stunt person, the actor, actress to basically have a waiting period after he or she consents, signing paperwork, all this. Like, there's a process behind that, which Kevin Costner doesn't really address in his declaration. Somebody who's been in the business, I don't know, for 40 plus years, doing all kinds of roles, you would think would be maybe well aware of this. Maybe he got, a little bit of like complacent in this area and was like, well, the stunt woman has a boss. The boss said it was okay, so we're going to move forward. Again, if you are to believe what Devyn is saying, she's saying that this simulated scene happened and it caused her a lot of trauma. And then Kevin is saying it never happened. Where do you guys stand with this? How do you guys feel about it? Do you guys feel like Devyn has a reason to feel upset over this? Or is Devyn lying? Is this Kevin Costner? Is he being like wrongfully represented in this situation? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.